Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. Unfortunately, things are looking very nasty through the first few days, particularly Friday the 18th as Storm Eunice hits the UK. Therefore, I'll take a look at the overview for the first week and afterwards come back to focus on the impact of Eunice. Starting at 18 GMT, Wednesday the 16th, it's actually windy at the outset. Gusts of over 50 miles per hour affecting much of the UK. Those are due to Storm Dudley, which is just starting to move away northeastwards. But even at this point, it's all eyes to the southwest because Eunice will be starting to form, and through Thursday it rapidly develops and races towards the UK. So by Friday morning through Friday afternoon, it looks like tracking across the northern half of the country. The strongest winds will be on its southern flank, and on its northern side there is a possibility of very heavy snow. There could be blizzard conditions over the Scottish Highlands. But it really is the strength of the winds across the densely populated southern and central parts of Britain which look like causing the major problems, and I will come back to look at those in a moment. But in the hours which follow, Eunice quickly moves away, but an unsettled pattern remains. The Atlantic still controls the UK's weather through the following days. Showers or longer spells of rain in all parts of the country, although it does look as though high pressure will be having more influence at times in the south and the east. Temperatures fluctuating, often mild in southern and central regions. Some colder incursions, and those are more likely to be affecting the north, and they won't be lasting for very long. Eunice, well, here's the jet stream chart for Thursday the 17th, midday. This is a fierce jet stream which is pushing across the Atlantic and over the UK. Eunice is here at this point. It's still rapidly deepening and heading in our direction. What sort of wind gust speeds can be expected? The details are still changing as the different computer models try to nail down the exact track and intensity of Storm Eunice. But I'll show a few different forecast charts which were available to me at the time of filming, starting with this animation generated using data from the high resolution UK Met Office UKV model. It runs from 12 GMT Thursday the 17th of February, at which point the strongest winds are in northeastern Britain. Those are due to Storm Dudley, which is moving away. Initially, the winds become lighter across all parts of the UK, but then through Thursday night and into Friday morning, look to the southwest. The pink and purple shading there shows Storm Eunice approaching. Extremely strong winds just to the southwest of the UK, gusts of over 100 miles per hour at this point. Now, as that area of strong winds moves eastwards across southern and central parts of the United Kingdom, it weakens a little bit. Nonetheless, even inland parts of southern and central Britain are seeing gusts of up to or around 80 miles per hour. Quite exceptional, and I don't think we've seen anything like this for a good long time. Those winds, though, quickly ease as Storm Eunice pulls away, and by Saturday it's back to normality almost. It's still quite windy there in the northwest, but compared to what's just gone, this will seem like a walk in the park. So how does the UKV compare to other forecast output? Here's a chart from the global UK Met Office model. So it shares a lot of the same internal physics and uses much of the data that the UKV does, but it's run at a lower resolution. The chart here, 12 GMT Friday the 18th, also shows exceptional winds over much of England and Wales, 80 miles an hour or even a little bit higher in some places. The strong winds are also extending up into the northwest. The Meteo France model, 13 GMT on Friday, 80 miles an hour plus over southern and central regions. Again, it's extreme. And if these charts were to verify, widespread travel disruption and damage would be likely. Not all the computer models are going for that scenario. The German icon is showing something a little bit different, and it has been consistently doing so in recent updates. The low pressure, Eunice, is further south here, so consequently its northern flank is also further south. The strongest winds are really reserved for the English Channel and southern coastal counties, and on this particular chart, snow is a more serious factor for central Britain. Accumulations here, 15 GMT on Friday the 18th, over 10 centimetres in much of Wales and 5 to 6 centimetres through central parts of England. Just to reinforce the message about the winds from the icon run, you can see here through the channel, the pinks are indicating gusts of over 80 miles per hour. Windy to the south of London, but compared to the UK Met Office Meteo France, this is a much less extreme event. Is it going to be right? Well, I think it's worth taking a look at the GEFS postage stamp plot for 12 GMT, Friday the 18th. Each one of these shows the forecast from one of the runs in the ensemble, and it's really highlighting that a range of potential outcomes are still on offer. The positioning of the low pressure at this time varies significantly, and on some of the runs there isn't even a closed circulation, much lighter winds if that is the outcome. Nonetheless, the majority of the stamps are showing a nasty picture on Friday, so most of them are backing the GFS operational and the UK Met Office and the Meteo France scenario. To just bring up the MOGREPS ensemble, this is the equivalent of the GEFS but run by the UK Met. There is good consistency here. It's more consistent than the GEFS. The individual stamps, virtually all of them are showing a closed circulation with Eunice tracking across central or northern parts of the UK. I think this really does add a degree of confidence into the mix. But as I say, whilst the icon and some of the GEFS stamps are going for a different scenario, it's not possible to be certain how this is going to be playing out. Just to look at the MOGREPS data in a different way, here's a line graph for London. Initially, Storm Dudley, as I've mentioned, brings strong winds of close to 50 or just a little bit above it in southern England. But here's Eunice with gusts of up to 80 miles an hour. You can see here that most of the runs in the MOGREPS ensemble are supporting these very high wind speeds. Not all of them do. Some are going down to 60, or I think for a 1 or 2 in there, which is lower again. But generally there is good support from MOGREPS for this extremely windy period in the south. Nottingham, just to head northwards to see what happens. Storm Dudley again at the start, and Eunice here is also having a big impact. But keeping the northwards journey and up to Newcastle, it's now Storm Dudley which is bringing the stronger winds in the short term than Eunice does a couple of days down the line. That's because, as I've been emphasising, the strongest winds from Eunice will be on its southern flank, and they're most likely to be affecting southern and central parts of Britain. But it's not a certainty at this stage. Just to take a look at the rainfall and potential snowfall associated with Eunice, because those could also have their own impacts. The chart on the left is for 06 GMT Friday. It's based on the UKV model once again. The pink shade in there shows heavy snow falling over parts of northern England and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland too. The chart on the right has everything moving a little bit further northwards. It's at 09 GMT. By this point, therefore, the snow is starting to reach into central Scotland. Further south and in eastern England as well, it's become mainly dry, but it's the strength of the winds, as I keep emphasising, which is a big problem for southern regions. Temperatures won't be the main factor in the weather during the first week, at least I'd be very surprised if they were, but just taking a quick look using the MOGREPS charts first. This one for London, initially it's very mild, temperatures then dip a little bit, but they're still in double figures, perhaps cooler here around the 19th, the 20th before tracking upwards once more. Similar in Glasgow, albeit at a slightly lower level, perhaps a longer, cooler spell here. Also, this caught my eye. This particular run dips down to -10. It's what's called an outlier. It is not supported by the other runs in the ensemble. It's basically gone off and developed its own evolution, done something very, very different to the others. So -10 compared to around 0 or up to 5 Celsius at the same time from the other MOGREPS members. GFS temperature table for London, Cardiff, Edinburgh and Belfast. Generally mild, as I've been saying, in London. Cardiff 2 with the light greens, a little bit cooler as you go up to Edinburgh and Belfast. More chance of temperatures dipping below freezing points on 1 or 2 nights, maybe a little bit of frost in sheltered locations. Rainfall. The chart on the left shows total precipitation for days 0 to 5. On the right, it is for days 0 to 10. The pattern is very clear. It's wet, indeed extremely wet in parts of the north and the northwest. Drier as you head southwards and eastwards, with accumulations of about 15 millimetres there in the southeastern corner after 10 days, compared to around 150, 180, 200 in the northwest during the same time period. So, with storms Dudley and Eunice causing havoc, potentially at least during the first few days, what happens later in the week? Do the deterministic models come back into agreement and show a similar scenario? Just to recap, here is the GFS. It was used to generate the animation. The chart is for Wednesday the 23rd. By this point, high pressure is starting to nudge up from the south and it's having some influence. The Canadian model, similar, high pressure ridging up from the south. German model, the same story. The European ECM model, very similar once again. Basically a westerly flow across the country with high pressure from the Azores nudging towards southern parts of the UK. Finally, the global UK Met Office model, the same story with high pressure building up from the south, at least to an extent. Something more normal to finish the first week after that potentially exceptionally and extreme spell of weather. How is the second week shaping up after all that excitement and potentially severe weather during the first one? Well, as ever at this range, it's just about using the ensemble data to try and identify the trends and the probabilities, not the specifics. Beginning with a 16-day GEFS plot for London. Across the top, forecast 850 HPA temperatures, and to begin with, the purple line, the ensemble mean, dips a little bit below the thick black line, which is a 30-year norm, but later on it climbs above it and it stays there, and most of the individual runs within the GEFS are also above that thick black line, often above the average, therefore. Rainfall, well, it looks like there's quite a strong signal for a drier period here between the 21st and maybe the 25th, but then the number of rain spikes starts to increase, indicating a growing chance of wetter conditions at times. Will there be any snow? Probably not. If the snow rose right, it reaches a maximum value through the second week there of 6 out of 33, a low chance. Going up to Glasgow, here, most of the runs are below that thick black line, the 30-year norm to begin with, significantly below it for a little bit of time. They then climb and stay above a thick black line for much of the time later on. I think taking the week as a whole, close to average, rather chilly to begin with, then quite a bit milder later on. Rain, well, certainly there are more spikes on this plot than there were on the London one. That actually ties in very nicely with those accumulated precipitation charts which I showed earlier. Much wetter in the northwest than in the southeast. Greater risk of snow as well. The snow row into the 20s there on a couple of days before it dips away towards the end of the period. So there could well be some transient snowfall in the north of the UK. Looking at the 2-metre temperatures, here's the data table for London. Columns mostly light green and yellow, indicating average or above average temperatures. So I think quite mild as well. These tie in quite nicely with the upper air temperature profile, mild down at the ground level as well for much of the second week. Going up to Glasgow, there's more dark green here. In fact, it's the majority through the first couple of days, but then the amount of light green also increases, suggesting as that milder upper level air increasingly moves across the north of the UK as well, 2-metre temperatures, the ground level temperatures pick up and correspond with that change of air mass. So closer to the average here than in the south, perhaps milder, becoming more likely towards the end. The data table showing mean surface level pressure for York. After those big storms early on, there is quite a lot of yellow and orange in these columns through the second week, which is indicating pressure close to or above that 30-year average. Hopefully, therefore, the storminess will be abating and won't be a big issue through the second week. I'm not entirely confident about that, and I'll come on to the reasons why in a moment, but certainly the signal here is for normality, at least, to return through week 2. The ensemble mean pressure plot for Saturday the 26th of February using data from the GEFS also shows high pressure having more influence once again. The oranges here suggest that. Looking at the European plot for the same time, if anything, there's a more vigorous Atlantic flow being suggested with the oranges further southwards. Nonetheless, even this would be fairly close to normal, I would think, not like what we can expect in the short term. But just looking at the pressure anomaly chart, this maybe throws 1 or 2 spanners into the works. It's for days 10 to 15 using the GEFS data. Blues here indicating a very sharply negative pressure anomaly to the northwest of UK, and just to our southeast, the orange is a strongly positive one, possibly suggesting a very steep pressure gradient. So even though high pressure to the south may be having some influence, deep areas of low pressure could be close to the northwest, and that tight pressure gradient may bring strong or even very strong winds at times during the second week. I'm just going to throw that in as a caveat, and it is something to look out for. Hopefully it won't be the case, but I'm not convinced at this point that we're out of the woods with stormy conditions just yet. So to summarise the next 2 weeks, Week 1, storms Dudley and Eunice bring severe weather to much of the UK through the first few days. I think, though, it is all eyes on Friday the 18th, when Eunice could lead to wind gusts of around 80 miles per hour, even in inland counties of southern and central Britain. If that happens, I fear that widespread disruption and damage is very likely. There's also the potential for heavy rain and, in the north, snow, particularly over high ground. Once Eunice clears away, it remains quite unsettled, but perhaps drier in the south at times as high pressure begins to have more influence. Week 2, generally changeable, wettest in the north, particularly the northwest, but rain affects all regions. High pressure has more influence in the south, so that's where the best of the drier periods can be expected. Often mild in the south, but in the north, temperatures through the week as a whole closer to the average. There is still a risk through the second week, I think, of it turning windy or very windy at times. Hopefully, though, not to the extent that we're going to be experiencing through the first few days. So, there we have it. I think Storm Eunice, or Eustace as I called it at one point accidentally, has the potential to lead to one of the biggest weather events in southern and central parts of Britain for a long time. I sincerely hope that I'm wrong, but the prognosis based on the computer model data to me at the time of filming this is not a good one. If the majority of the computer model runs are correct, then widespread disruption and damage appear to be very likely. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this video despite its gloomy outlook and found it useful, of course. If you did, then please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Right, I'm now off to track down the details of local roofers, and I hope to be able to bring you the 14-day video at the same time next week. Thank you for watching now. Bye.